How consistent were you with tracking? Honestly, I would probably say 90% and 10%. What is good, guys? So today we're going to be talking about my 12-week transformation. It's going to be like a Q&A. So I did an Instagram story and it was basically just asking you guys to ask me some questions about my 12-week transformation on the whole process of weight loss and cutting, dieting, nutrition, training, all that kind of stuff. So I got some questions. I'm going to be answering these questions today on this video. Also going to be throwing a bunch of photos, videos, little clips from my entire 12 weeks. Start off, I started at 180 pounds. I started on May 1st. So my plan was to do May, June, July, and then be super lean for August and just kind of maintain throughout August. End of July, I weighed in at 167 pounds, so I lost about 13 pounds in the process. My plan was to lose a pound per week. Let's get into this Q&A. So, first question, how much weight did you lose and did you lose straight? So I'm assuming, did you lose it straight in like a linear fashion, I guess, consistently? So, like I said just before this, I lost 13 pounds. So I started at 180 pounds and then I got to 167. So 13 pounds down. It was very consistent. It was, like I said, about a pound per week on average. Like 1 week I would lose like 0.5 pounds and then the next week I would lose like 1.5. So it all evened out, but yes, it was pretty consistent. Second question, what were your macros like? So when I was bulking, when I was trying to gain weight, I was at 3,600 calories. So I was eating around like 190 grams of protein, 500 grams of carbs, and like 100 grams of fat. So I was weighing myself every single day and taking the average of each week and making sure I was losing about a pound per week. Okay, so for example, if I wasn't losing any weight, I would decrease my calories more for the following week. But since it was pretty consistent and I've been doing this for the past like 3 years or so, tracking consistently, I can kind of see what my body needs in order to lose weight. So my macros to start were around 2,600 calories, I believe, and I slowly dropped them over the weeks as I was starting to plateau a little bit. So let me check right now. My current macros for the end of my cut, this was probably for the last like 4 weeks of my cut, it's at 2,250 calories, 190 grams of protein, 260 grams of carbs, 50 grams of fat. So I stayed within like the 2,600 to 2,200 range throughout my entire cut, but obviously it's going to differ from person to person, so you got to see what works best for you. So just experiment and weigh yourself consistently, track your progress, and you should be good. Moving on, it's hot out here. The third question we got, how did you deal with cravings? So I have a pretty big sweet tooth, so what really helped me was doing intermittent fasting, so pushing back my first meal until like noon or 1 p.m. even, and just eating super high protein breakfasts, eating very lean protein sources throughout the day so I could save my cravings for the nighttime. So if I wanted to have like ice cream or something, I would go for like a lower calorie ice cream option. Most importantly, I would make sure I don't restrict myself too much. Make sure I like allow myself to have these foods, because otherwise you're just restricting yourself so much, and what's the point of that? You just basically have to be smart about it and kind of plan your day out beforehand. Make room for those cravings, make room for the beers that you want, or make room for the food that you want. One other thing that really helped me out was just eating low calorie food. Coffee really helped me. Caffeine is a natural suppressant, so I would have black coffee and just lower calorie options throughout the day. So just look at your labels. So number 4, how consistent were you with tracking? Honestly, I would probably say 90% and 10%. Let's say 80%. 80% tracking, 20% non-tracking. And the reason is because I have been tracking for like 4 or 5 years of my life. I pretty much know what my body needs in order to achieve these kind of goals. If you're someone that's just starting out, then I highly recommend to be as consistent as possible with your tracking, because you don't really know what your body needs in order to reach those goals and in order to lose fat. Like if this is your first time cutting, then like the only way to know what your body actually needs to lose weight is to be consistent. So if I was talking to myself just starting out, I would tell myself to be like, try and be 90%, 10%, so like 90% tracking and on top of it. The more consistent you are with tracking, the more results you're gonna get. So it depends how bad you want it. If you want it that badly, you're gonna stay consistent and you're gonna be on top of it. But yeah, so I would say for myself, throughout this cut, I was like 80-20. Next question. Can you explain a quick highlight of diet and workout of skinny fat guys? Okay, this question I could go so many places with, so I'm just gonna keep it pretty brief. I used to be skinny fat. I'll put a little photo of it to just show you guys. Honestly, track your macros, be in a calorie surplus. You want to gain muscle because skinny fat is basically you're holding fat on your body and you don't have any muscle. One way to really do this is to build muscle so that you almost create that illusion of being bigger. If you take someone that's like skinny fat versus someone that has muscle but is the same percentage of body fat, this person is gonna look much bigger and leaner because they have muscle on their frame. So eat in a calorie surplus, train 5 times a week, aim to hit every muscle group twice a week, and be patient because this shit takes time. Get a program, hire a coach or something that will help you out because that will help massively in the beginning. What was the hardest part for you? To be honest, the hardest part for me throughout this cut was I was in the whole process of moving from Montreal to Vancouver, so staying on top of my macros and training was pretty difficult when I was moving and traveling and getting settled into my place and finding a new gym. Like there were so many things that happened, and like I just started a business, my coaching business, and like there's just so much going on right now. So I think the hardest part for me was just trying to balance like my life and balancing that with focusing on my personal training and nutrition and cut. So that was definitely the hardest part for me. What exercises have you do? So I'm assuming this is what exercises did you do? I obviously did a ton of different exercises, but when it comes to like training split, it's a bit different than a push-pull legs. But I did like a 3 days on, 1 day off split, and I kind of did that throughout my entire cut. There were times that I wasn't able to hit the gym 6 times a week. There was, you know, especially when I was traveling and stuff, and when I was moving to Vancouver, so I was doing like an upper-lower split. But overall, I would say 6 times a week training, but I have tons of workouts on my Instagram that kind of just show my workouts. I forget what number, but we're on the last question here. So how much body fat should a bulk last? What's the right term to start shredding? Okay, so this is actually a really good question. I'm gonna go ahead and start off with, when it comes to getting shredded or when it comes to cutting, I feel like a lot of people will want to cut right away. But what I mean by this is like, a lot of people will see like fitness influencers and people on Instagram cutting and getting shredded and whatnot. And they want to be like them, or they want to get shredded as well. But the truth is that they don't necessarily have that much muscle mass on their frame to do so. So when they cut down, they end up getting really skinny and not having much muscle to show. But at the end of the day, it's your decision. You know, if you want to do that and if you want to be lean and not big, that's totally fine. You know, it's all dependent on you, the individual, and what you want and what your goals are. If you're a beginner, I wouldn't focus on getting shredded or getting lean. Focus on building muscle mass because it takes time to build quality muscle. And then when it comes to this specific question, how much body fat until you start cutting, I mean, this really varies because people store body fat in different areas. Someone with 20% body fat, if you compare the two that store body fat in completely different areas, one can look much leaner than the other depending on where they store their body fat. So this really depends on the individual. Generally, like when you start to feel like you're getting quite a bit of fat on your frame and you have a decent amount of muscle mass, then that's when I feel like you should start cutting. But at the end of the day, it's dependent on your goals. I wouldn't listen to like an influencer or watch like a video or look at someone on Instagram and say, oh, like they're super lean, so I want to be like them. Like just be self-aware, know what you want and do it for yourself, not anyone else. And just experiment too. Life is about experimenting, trying new things, and at the end of the day, 12 weeks is nothing throughout your life. So even if you do cut for 12 weeks, you still have your whole life ahead of you to do whatever. That is it. That's it for the questions. I hope this helped you guys out. I guess my main message to you guys with this whole thing is to just be patient, trust the process. If you struggle with like having structure with a program, or if you struggle with like always like wanting to cut, then wanting to bulk, wanting to cut, just stick with one thing for a certain amount of time. Pick a time frame like 12 weeks and just experiment, try it out. But don't give yourself unrealistic expectations. Don't say like I'm gonna get shredded in 4 weeks, because that's just not realistic. Most importantly, do it for yourself. Don't fucking do this for anyone else but yourself. Do it. Don't do this to impress other people. I mean, you can if you want, but what is that gonna do? If you guys have any questions, please make sure to write them in the comments down below, or you can send me a DM on my Instagram at CaliGFitness. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Caffeine. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in that next video. Gang, peace.